coming in. Good morning, everyone. Is this too loud? I don't know how to turn the volume down. No, it's not too loud. Okay. I'm gonna set a timer so that we don't go over here. All right, there you go. Here it'll be sitting right there. So one of the things I'm looking forward to in heaven is when geography doesn't matter anymore and we're all the people you love are in one place at one time. So this morning I have a little bit of heaven. Lynn has come back to us from Mexico, so she's here. This old man with a cup in his hand is one of my brothers, Bruce, and his wife Donna are here from Buffalo, New York. And then, of course, my sisters from Ukraine, our sisters from Ukraine, Ira and Natasha, that you'll get to hear about this morning. We thought, though, before they come up here and speak, we have so many new people at 3 Chop that maybe we should spend 5 minutes kind of explaining what Mission to Ukraine is, right? Because for those that don't know, if you look at the heartbeat, every week since 2005, one of our mission efforts listed is Mission to Ukraine, right? And those are the speakers that are here with us today. Ira is the director of all of operations in Ukraine, and Natasha, the redhead, is our HR director. And the reason they're in America right now while a war is going on is it had twofold. One is we had a big board meeting, and Ira will tell you a little more about what's going on there later. But we had a big board meeting because between COVID and inflation and the war, we're trying to build a building. We've been working out for a couple of years, and we had to decide with all the price increases, are we still going to go down that path or are we not? So Ira will share a little bit more about that. But the other purpose of their trip is Natasha, as the HR director, wanted to come do some HR benchmarking. So she's had a chance to go meet with all kinds of ministries and business in Indianapolis and Virginia and get some ideas of what we can do to kind of make Mission to Ukraine stronger, better, and sustainable for the future. So to key this up, Jeremy's going to play a video. Some of you have already seen it, but it's only 4 minutes, so it's not going to kill you to watch it again, I hope. But keep in mind, it was filmed about 4 years ago before the war, so it's very happy and upbeat, but it does a great job of telling you who Mission to Ukraine is, what their purpose is, what we do. And the numbers you're going to see, I would probably double every number that you see pop up because it is 4 years old. So Jeremy, anytime you there you go. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tanya. I want to show you Mission to Ukraine, MTU for short. We are a little organization in Zhytomyr, Ukraine, and we have big dreams. Our dream is to make Ukraine a place where every life is valued. You might say that's bold, but we believe that God has called us to do great things, and we believe in showing every person the dignity they deserve. Ukraine is a beautiful country. The people of Ukraine take a lot of pride in who we are. At MTU, we are so grateful to call Ukraine home. We love this place. But there are some people in Ukraine who don't feel very valuable or important. We serve mothers who are considering having an abortion, and we serve families and children with disabilities. Mission to Ukraine exists to love those people with compassion and transform their lives in healing ways. This is Ira. She's the executive director who has been here since the beginning, back in 1997, when a few other people gathered with a dream to passionately defend the lives of unborn babies. Since that day, MTU has steadily grown into an organization that, with God's grace, has saved the lives of over 1,200 babies in Ukraine. In fact, we have a whole team dedicated to supporting mothers in need who are considering abortion. We visit and counsel them in local abortion clinics and hospitals. We walk alongside them as they come to a crucial decision, and then we serve them after they choose life by offering counseling, education, food, clothing, and the essentials needed in nurturing a baby. Abortion is a pretty serious issue in Ukraine. Almost half of the women in our country will have at least one abortion in their lifetime. Their families and doctors often want them to have abortions as a form of birth control. It is a crisis indeed. But we are so blessed to be on the front lines in our country, fighting for the lives of the unborn. That's only half of what we do. There is another group of people in Ukraine who aren't valued in our country. The other pillar of our ministry is to provide dignity, care, and love to children and young adults with special needs. For some reason, our culture doesn't see these people as equal. Life is very hard for people with disabilities in Ukraine. They are often alienated and devalued by our society. But MTU has served over 2,000 families with children who have special needs so that they understand that they are loved and are a masterpiece from God. Our wonderful therapists work to provide a variety of therapeutic services to people who need them. People come from all over to work with our specialists. We also provide a full-service medical clinic to people with special needs. This is exciting because a lot of Ukrainian state clinics do not recognize the value and potential of these wonderful people and won't treat them with proper care, whether it's a medical, psychological, spiritual, emotional, or social need. We love people with special needs and provide the utmost care for them and their families. And that's just a glimpse into who we are. But you know what? The most important thing for us at MTU to do is to love these people, because that's what God calls us to do. Like I said at the beginning of the story, we dream big, and our big dream is to see Ukraine become a place where every life is valued. Every day at MTU, we see it happening. Through compassionate love, we are transforming lives.
See how happy that is? Jeremy, Ira thinks that because that's so happy, it's not reality with war, maybe we should cue up the next video to help us make that transition so you can sort of see how things have changed.
370 days of war. 275 pounds of humanitarian aid. 332 children with disabilities received. 5,511 comprehensive medical and social rehabilitation services. 2,769,314 Ukrainian hryvnias of help for defenders of Ukraine. 2,571 consultations. 405 women with unwanted pregnancies found a way out of crisis situations. 407 babies born. We survived. From the first day of the invasion, we did not stop walking. We were there every day, ready to help. We looked in the face of fear. We did not know what would happen tomorrow, but despite this, the values of our organization manifested even more powerfully in action this year. Our values: compassion, help for the most marginalized, value for human life, integrity and excellence in everything we do. Guided by each of these principles, we stayed in touch 24/7. In the most difficult year for our country, we worked even faster and harder. Every day distributing foods, medicines, hygiene products, not only to the residents of our city, but way beyond its borders. We were in the hottest spots to support and provide our defenders with everything necessary. We work for the sake of life, we work for the sake of victory, and not only victory for our country, but also victory for our children in rehabilitation, for victories of women and families in crisis situations. Thank you to everyone who is with us, who loves children, who trusts us. Thank you to all people and organizations who care, who donate. We believe that this year will bring us not just victory, but also restoration of our country. And we will continue to work for you. We love you. Yours, Mission to Ukraine.
Good morning, everybody. And first of all, I want to bring you greetings from your brothers and sisters in Ukraine. The actual war that Russia started against Ukraine started in 2014. But the fights at that time were happening in the east of our country, and they were smaller, so probably the world didn't hear as much about them. But on February 24 of 2022, the full-scale invasion started. None of us expected it. Although we saw Russian troops gathering around our borders, we thought it was just a political maybe move. Maybe Putin wanted to get something out of the world or Ukraine. But we all woke up at 4 or 5 in the morning on that day, hearing bombs falling into our cities. And it was a complete shock and panic for most people. You probably saw the images of just millions of people flooding to the border, trying to move to the east, to the west, or leave the country. And through the course of evacuation, over 10 million people left eastern and central parts of Ukraine, and about 8 million of them landed in Europe right now. Ukraine wasn't ready for this war. We didn't have the weapon, we didn't have experience, we didn't have any plans to prepare for this war. And people, the government couldn't prepare us. They didn't want people to panic. So most people were not ready. Most businesses were not ready. So in the first several weeks and months, there was a lot of panic, a lot of businesses closed down, a lot of people didn't know what to do, leave, not leave. A lot of men were drafted, and men cannot leave our country, so families were losing their bread makers. And in the middle of all of this, we at Mission to Ukraine felt like it's so much more important for us to stay put where we are, because the families we serve couldn't get in a car and move. They didn't have a car. Their children could not tolerate long trip. And their children could not tolerate being in a foreign place and being in a foreign country and a foreign culture. So about 20% overall of our clients were able to move somewhere to a safer place, but 80% of our families had to stay where they are. So our everyday life looks like this. Any time of the day, we get an air raid siren, which means there is a missile attack threat. That can mean that Russia is only threatening us or bombing a certain part of the country, or it can be a massive missile attack. So the bombs could be coming anywhere. So the recommendation is you need to hide in a shelter. Well, our country doesn't have shelters. So people are trying to use basements or whatever structure they can find to hide. Well, children with disabilities are in wheelchairs. They cannot move on their own. So the moms are trying to drag these kids into the basements. Kids are scared, they're panicking. So it's been a very, very difficult year of our lives. I can say that Ukraine is bleeding still. The front line has stabilized right now. In the beginning, they moved from north, east, and south at the same time, massively, with huge numbers, a lot of tanks, equipment. But we truly believe that God was the one who stopped them, because Ukraine could not even come close to resisting them or to fighting them. Again, we did not have any weapon. And we still don't know how we could stop them in the beginning, in April of 2022. So gradually, Russia has regrouped, and now the most fierce fights are in the east and in the south. And even though we don't have fights in our region where Zhytomyr is, but most of us have family members who are fighting. A lot of us have friends that we have already lost in this war. And every day we understand that there are hundreds of people who are getting killed, getting injured. The war, of course, is driving terrible inflation for Ukraine, and the prices have gone up increasingly. And our government is trying to keep up with this. But again, the families we serve, who depend on a small government dotation, can only afford so much. And so from the very beginning, we felt like it's extremely important for Mission to Ukraine not just to continue doing what we are doing, but to increase our services. And I want to thank you. I think I know that 3CHOP was participating, some of you, in gathering humanitarian aid for us. That was so important. A lot of our moms living out in the villages, and their little shops and pharmacies closed altogether. There was no public transportation, so these people were left pretty much to nothing. And if Mission to Ukraine wasn't there to bring food and everything they needed, diapers, medicines, I don't know how they would have survived. So the first several months of the war, we put a lot of effort into providing for their basic survival needs, food, medicines, diapers, whatever, clothes, whatever they needed at the time. And eventually, a few months down the road, things in our country started sort of getting stabilized. Ukrainian army was able to draw Russian troops out of northern parts, which is where Zhytomyr is located. So visually, right now, we have buildings that were bombed. You can see the signs of war in our city, but outside of missile attacks, the life sort of stabilized. Our businesses are sort of back, not to the full scale, but we have stores, people are trying to work. Our government is encouraging us to do whatever we can to keep up the economy so the country would continue to live. And in probably 5 or 6 months later, our families were finally able to sort of emotionally stabilize and request our rehabilitation services. Mission to Ukraine has a very small facility now for what we are trying to do. We serve about 600 families with disabilities a year, and we just have a tiny building, and it doesn't have a bomb shelter. So thankfully, one of the churches has offered their basement to us because they have a shelter, and so we were able to move all of our services, and we have been able to now do online our regular physical therapy, occupational, all of our services to continue helping the children. We are determined that we cannot let Russia or our enemies to stop our lives. They've already taken a whole year of our lives. And in rehabilitation, it's very important for the children not to stop, not to digress. So we now continue rehabilitation services, but what we have seen above and beyond throughout this year is people need the Lord more than ever. And of course, we have seen much more interest now, and we have many more ears now to listen. And the fact that we are right in the Baptist church, right in the church, which is hard for people to usually to make that step. They come to a professional rehab service place, and where is the church in here? So this is a blessing for us because now they're in the building, and it's very easy for us to say, hey, if you go upstairs, we can pray for you, or you can end up in the service. And this is one of the flip sides of this. Even though the situation is terrible, as I said, our country is bleeding, and even now, the place where the war is at this moment, it's kind of stuck nowhere. Nobody has potential to attack each other. So there are fights, and both armies are bleeding, kind of depleting each other. And unfortunately, this can go on for a long, long time. But we are praying for the Lord, and we want to ask you all to pray for the Lord to do something grand this year and stop this. Because the lives of the people who are sacrificing themselves are being taken for nothing, for no reason. There was no reason for this war, and there is no reason for us to continue. And what we see right now is the Lord is preparing grounds in this tragedy, in this sadness. I think people are much more inclined to actually hear about the Lord and to follow Him. We see this with our clients. We had a lot of opportunities to bring the gospel to people, and we see a lot of response. In the future, of course, we believe God will give us victory. And when the restoration will come, one of the biggest needs we're going to have is the veterans. People with PTSDs, with need and physical rehabilitation, and our country has zero knowledge, expertise, or any kind of infrastructure for it. So we are praying, and we see that God is probably leading us to step into this area of huge need and help. Because we already have rehabilitation, we already have knowledge and expertise that people could use. So probably this is where we will be heading in the next several years. And for this reason, we believe 3 years ago, God has allowed us to start building a new facility, because right now it's our biggest constraint. We cannot do anything else if we don't get a bigger space. And I don't know if we can get the pictures on the screen of our new facility. We brought some renderings to show you, but we've built, the government, actually, the city gave us a very nice piece of land in a beautiful area. And before the war, we were able to do about 30% of the structure needed. Yeah, these are the renderings of what our facility will look like. And this is what the facility is now. This is the stage. We have the structure, the roof, and the internal walls now. But that's another prayer request for you. Please pray for the Lord to bless this, keep this safe as missiles are flying everywhere in our country. But above all, to use this place for the Lord to bring His love, His kingdom to more people. And at this point, we are going to help the veterans and help the families that are suffering so much more. A lot of the as I said, men cannot leave the country because we need our own mobilization resource to fight in the war. So most families are now split. Women and children are out somewhere, either in the safer areas in the west of the country or abroad in Europe. And it's been a year, and the families haven't been able to reunite, and we don't know when they will reunite. So MTU will have a lot of work to do with helping the families to, as they do come back, to cover the gap of what has happened this year, and people kind of drawing apart, and husbands and wives having very different experience for the whole year. So I guess I want to thank you all for your prayers. We believe that prayers, God is still in control, and prayers mean so much. We believe the Lord really just preserved our area, and Russians were not able to step in, because when Russia occupies a territory, the crimes that these people commit are just unspeakable, and I don't want to bring any examples to you right now, but you probably read a lot of them. And praise the Lord for not allowing them to step foot on Zhytomyr territory. And I believe because we're in the center, it gave us ground to be such a resource. For one thing, for refugees. A lot of people were moving from the east to the west. So Zhytomyr has received and helped about 1 million refugees. And 70,000 of them landed in our region. So we've been able to help a lot of refugees, MTU including, with, again, humanitarian effort, but also with psychological help. A lot of these people are so traumatized and just need comfort and love of Christ more than anybody else. We believe in psychology, but when war happens, everybody understands psychology is nothing. If the Lord doesn't touch your heart and doesn't give you hope and doesn't give you peace, nothing will help you. So I want to thank you all for praying, because prayers move mountains and move everything in our country. And we believe prayers will stop the war and will give us victory. And I also want to tell you how grateful we are for what United States and NATO and other countries are doing to support us. Because we would have no chance to survive as a country, as a nation, if the world and the Western countries did not unite around Ukraine and send us help. We need tangible help. Unfortunately, we don't have the instruments to withstand in this war. So I want to thank you for this and ask you to please continue praying for us and stand with us. Don't forget about Ukraine and continue praying for us. And I guess we'll leave some time for questions. These are renderings, and this is going to be mainly our rehabilitation facility, where we're going to continue providing therapy, special education. We have a private medical clinic. We have Bible teachers. We have a lot of humanitarian effort. So this facility will allow us to pretty much double our efforts. The numbers you saw in the first movie were very outdated. Like as of today, we have 3,600 babies who were born because Mission to Ukraine helped their families. And we serve about 600 families every year with rehabilitation. And these people don't just get humanitarian aid or physical aid. Everything we do so they could see, feel, and experience the love of Christ. And when they experience it through practical help, it's much easier for us to share the gospel and study the Bible with them, because they respond. And we see a lot of them joining local communities. And so, yeah, this is what it is. So I also have Natasha with me. Both Natasha and I are from the Zhytomyr Church of Christ. So maybe we'll ask Natasha to share just a tiny bit about the church and what's going on there.
Добрий ранок усім. Я буду говорити українською, але дякую Ірочці за допомогу з перекладом.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to speak Ukrainian, so Ira will help translate.
Я хочу подякувати вам всім. Хочу подякувати вам всім за вашу підтримку, за вашу молитву і ту допомогу, яку ви нам надаєте.
I want to first of all thank you all because you have been a substantial help and encouragement for us this year.
Сьогодні я прийшла в вашу церкву і відразу побачила декілька облич, які я вже бачила до цього. Бачила на екрані наших зустрічей в Zoom.
I was so blessed to enter your church building and see faces that I was able to recognize because of our weekly Zoom meetings.
Я відчула себе трошки як вдома.
So I almost felt at home already.
Дякую, Дебі, за те, що допомагає нам мати цю підтримку і спілкування кожного неділю, кожного вівторка. Ми маємо молитовні групи, молитовні зустрічі.
Thank you, Debbie, for organizing our weekly Zoom calls where we are able to pray together and be encouraged by you.
І я хочу сказати, що це дуже важливо для нас. Дуже важливо, тому що з перших днів війни просто ми всі були роздавлені, розбиті, не знали, як нам жити далі.
And I want to tell you that this was extremely important for us because from day one of the full-scale invasion, we all were so stressed and shocked. We didn't know what we are supposed to do next. How are we going to start a new day tomorrow?
Частина членів нашої церкви виїхали з країни, тому що ми всі боялися, що ми будемо окуповані.
Part of our congregation evacuated, and those are mainly moms with children, because we didn't know, and we thought Zhytomyr would definitely be occupied.
І, звичайно, війна вплинула на всі сфери нашого життя, в тому числі на церкву.
And of course, war impacted every area of our life, including our church, including our emotional well-being.
І я зараз тут стою і хочу засвідчити вам про Божу любов і Його вірність.
And but standing here in front of you, I can testify to you about God's faithfulness.
Ви знаєте, слова із Біблії, коли я читала раніше, було написано, що все вірним Богу, все содействує ко благу, вони для мене ожили зараз.
You know, when we read the Lord saying in the Bible that for those who believe in Him, everything works out for the best. This verse has become alive for me.
Якби не ця страшна війна, я б ніколи не дізналася, що в мене є стільки люблячих і турботливих братів і сестер тут в Америці.
If it wasn't for this terrible war, I would have never known how many loving brothers and sisters I have so far away.
Якби не ця страшна війна, деякі члени нашої церкви не отримали б тої медичної допомоги, які вони змогли отримати. І вони просто, я впевнена, що у нас є брат церкви, який живий сьогодні, тому що він зміг з дружиною виїхати в Італію, там йому надали якусь медичну допомогу.
Interestingly, the flip side of this, people who were able to evacuate ended up receiving medical care in Europe that they would not have been able to receive if they were in Ukraine. For example, we have a family in our congregation who evacuated to Italy, and because he was able to receive medical care, he is alive now. He was diagnosed with cancer and he was able to receive treatment. And in Ukraine, they couldn't diagnose him, so he probably would not survive by now.
І знаєте, що цікаво, дійсно так Бог працює через цю війну, впливає на людей, що наша церква стала більшою, на поклоніннях стало більше вдвічі.
And it's interesting that right now, even though our city has lost some citizens, a lot of them evacuated, but our church is fuller right now because we have more people coming.
І, наприклад, навіть в моїй сім'ї, в мене є невіруючий чоловік, моєї дружини, але зараз, під час, коли почалась війна, вони всією сім'єю, з дітьми, з внуками, з чоловіком приходять постійно на служіння, і він вже думає про
For example, my
хрещення.
own family, my brother-in-law is not a believer, but since the war started, he has been to every Sunday worship service along with the rest of the family at church, and he's now preparing for a baptism.
Люди стали більше довіряти Богу, покладатися на Бога і надіятись лише на нього.
So our church members are visibly trusting God more, hoping for God's plans, and it's you can see this.
Ми розуміємо, що не армія, не наше керівництво нашої держави не може дати нам то, про що ми молимося кожен день. Ми чекаємо перемогу лише від Господа.
And we understand that neither army nor tanks nor equipment can bring us what the whole country is dreaming for, our victory. We are waiting for victory to be given to us by the Lord.
Ну і хочу сказати, як керівник недільної школи, хочу також сказати, порадіти, що навіть в таких страшних умовах у мене є привід для радості. Наша недільна школа збільшилась вдвічі.
And as a Sunday school director in our church, I'm rejoicing that during the war times, the number of children in our Sunday school doubled.
Ми дякуємо Богу, що у нас є можливість допомагати біженцям. І в нашій недільній школі, в нашій церкві є 3 сім'ї, які відвідують наше поклоніння, і діти їх відвідують недільну школу.
We are grateful to God for allowing us to care for the refugees. We now have a family that came from the east, evacuated to Zhytomyr, and it's a single mom with 5 little children, and we are able to help them.
Тому я хочу зараз сказати велике вам дякую. Дякую за те, що ви поруч з нами. Дякую, що ви підтримуєте, тому що для нас це дуже важливо знати, що за тисячі кілометрів є рідні люди, брати і сестри, які разом стоять з нами в молитвах.
So I want to tell you a huge thank you for standing along with us in your thoughts, in your prayers. It's very important for us to know that the church around the world is supporting us and is standing alongside
І я прошу
us.
вас продовжувати молитися за нас, за тих людей, які долучилися до нашої церкви, щоб вони дійсно стали Божими дітьми, щоб вони отримали спасіння.
And I want to ask you to continue praying for us, for our country, and for our church, for people who started attending us during the war to become part of our family.
Дякую вам.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Is there time in case anybody has questions? Okay. It's your last chance. We don't know when they'll be back. Yes, Whitney. I think I get to walk around now.
Yeah. I wanted to know how inflation has affected Mission to Ukraine, if God has provided more funds or if you guys are in need.
Yes, to both. Last year, our budget had to burst because of the need that appeared, and it was amazing to see how generous the Lord was. We had so many more donations, and we just think because it was news. People were shocked. We had a lot of strangers, a lot of people we never knew before, wanting to help and bring in donations. This year, the news is going down. War in Ukraine is not a sensation anymore, and so we don't have the same burst of donations. So far, the Lord has been faithful, and this has been our story for 25 years. One step at a time, the Lord provides for your needs. But the needs are great, and right now, we don't have our budget ready for us. We're sort of fundraising as we go. So it's a need and a prayer request and a gratitude at the same time. Thank you.
Hey, Ira, I'm going to add to that answer if you don't mind. I know you guys have been deeply involved in, a couple of times now, we've gathered humanitarian aid and shipped it. Well, now as Ira described, the country's opening back up and goods are available in the country. Sorry, people are turning around. I'll walk up front. We're not going to buy them in the U.S. anymore. It's actually more cost effective to buy them in Ukraine. They're a lot cheaper. It saves the money on shipping, and it helps keep their economy going during the war. So the needs are still there. It's just easier if you donate money and let them purchase them in the country. The other place we've seen inflation, as I mentioned, is the building. It's the estimated cost of completing our building is now doubled. It's moved from $3 million to $6 million. $5.5 million. And if you're looking at those renderings, if you notice the architectural drawing looked like a one-story building, but the construction looked like 2 stories, that's not a mistake. The building's built on a hill. So from the front, it looks like 1 story, but that picture of where our construction currently stands was taken from the back of the building. So that's why that picture looked a little funny. Yes. The builders did follow the drawings. It wasn't a mistake. Yeah.
And thank you for the opportunity to share this with you, and thank you for your prayers.
Looks like we have one more question if we get to.
instead of buying goods and having them shipped to Debbie, you mentioned donate. What does that look like? Is there a minimum threshold? What is better, a lump sum that may be bigger or ongoing? Like, how would we do that practically? Yeah.
It's very easy. You can go online or you can send a check. It doesn't matter. I think it's better for us if you do it consistently, like monthly donation, then we know what we have. Again, we don't have a lump of money to count on. We raise money and we're able to help people as money is coming in. So I think monthly donations are missiontoUkraine.org.
And we can email that out too. Thank you, Ruben. Rod? Yes, sir. You definitely.
Hi, Rod. Good to see you.
You know, you've talked about two different things. You've talked about Mission Ukraine and also the church there.
Yes.
And I think mostly the funding issues have borne on MTU. What about the church? How financially stable are you, or should we be giving the church some financial support as well?
This is actually a much better question for our elders. And they didn't give me authority to talk about this. So as a church member, I can tell you that, of course, you know, everybody needs help right now in Ukraine to survive and live through this time. We also have a ministry in Romanian orphanage. Alongside with MTU, our church is actually doing weekly ministry in the orphanage. It's trickier, it's more difficult to send the money because our church does not have an organization set up or opportunity for online donations. So I think it's easier to connect with Debbie, and she's going to help you figure that one out.
And I have asked each time I've been, and I have not gotten the answer I've gotten is that how God has been providing, and there isn't anything urgent, but it's a war that could change at any point, right?
Is the church able to help women and girls who are raped by the soldiers that from Russia? In every war we have rape, we have women and young
The
girls
church does, yeah,
brutalized by soldiers.
yeah, we haven't had any of these ladies come through Zhytomyr or come to the church, and the church doesn't have a ministry for this. Mission to Ukraine does. We have actually had several crisis pregnancy situations as a result of the crimes that Russian soldiers committed. And we had a lot of trauma counseling clients because of that. So yeah, and unfortunately it's continuing. It's, you know, the war is not over yet. But we have, just to make a connection, we have about 8 or 10 church members working at Mission to Ukraine. Yeah. So it's, so part of our staff is MTU church members. So from this regard, the Church of Christ is helping these women.
That's what I was going to add, is people ask me all the time, is this a Church of Christ ministry? And I would say yes, but the way some people mean it, it would probably say no, it's not purely a Church of Christ ministry. It's evangelical, faith-based, any Christian church.
We're non-denominational,
yeah,
yes, as
that
an organization.
is evangelical in nature, but 8, 9 people from the Church of Christ are very much a part of Mission to Ukraine. Ira, who's the operational director, the HR director, the finance director, the head special ed teacher, so they're everywhere. so it's really hard. It's funny when I take people over from the church. The first thing I do is take them to church on Sunday. I plan the trip specifically, so they go to church and meet everybody on Sunday. Then on Monday, when we go to Mission to Ukraine, they're like, it's the same people.
It's the same faces.
Because until you experience that, it's hard to explain. You cannot separate the two.
Yeah, it's just Mission to Ukraine provides means for us to serve the Lord all week long, all day long. And this is just an amazing opportunity for us.
Well, we're at time, and I know some folks have to go get their kids, but thank you for your time and your attention and your questions. You can continue questions between and after service. They'll be here for a little bit, and I think Ivory's going to close us out by praying over them. And
my wife had the opportunity of going on one of Debbie's mission trips in 2018. She flew into the Netherlands, flew back to Kiev, and took a bus from Kiev to Zhytomyr. And it was a 60-mile bus ride, and she had an opportunity to see the countryside, look at all the beauty of that country, and she told me all about it when she got back and how wonderful the people were there. So and she also taught them several American songs. So she's known as the American songstress from Three Chop, and whenever they come here, I'm always introduced as that singing lady's husband. So I feel real close to them, and as though they are truly indeed my brothers and my sisters over there. But there's three things that I picked up from their message this morning, that is, in spite of their current situation, they are at war now. They're still keeping God first in everything that they're doing. And number two, God is opening doors for new ministries, and they're pursuing those ministries as this war continues. And number three, they're telling us that God is going to bring the people of Ukraine through this war victoriously. We should be telling them that and expressing that to them over and over again. They're talking about the world, okay, and how they see the world, but the world is looking at that country and how they are standing tall and staying on the battlefield and keeping God first in all that they're doing. And we know that he's going to bring them the victory. And we're going to stand behind them in all that we can do and do all that we can do to help them along. So continue to come and see us, and we'll continue to pray for you, and we will pray for you at this time as you prepare to leave and go to other places. Lord, we thank you for we thank Ira and for Natasha, for the people of Ukraine, Lord. We just ask that you keep your arms around them, guide their hearts and their minds and their footsteps, that they would do those things in spite of their situation that would be pleasing in your sight. There are those in the world that may not understand this thing of love and how this love moves from heart to heart and from breast to breast, Lord. But we know that you will instill it within them, that the things that they do will be reflected of a loving heart, Lord, and that the world will continue to look upon them and the work that they're doing and know that they're on the battlefield for you. So, Lord, be with them and guide them and lead their hearts and their footsteps, and we'll continue to pray for them, and we know that you will do everything for them. So in the name of your Son, Jesus, I pray, and let us all say amen.
Amen. Thank you.